Any questions?
Mr. President, the North Koreans said yesterday that your statement on Tuesday was nonsense. That's the word that they used. Do you have any response to that?
Well, I don't think they mean that, and I think it's the first time they've heard it like they heard it. And frankly, the people that were questioning that statement, was it too tough? Maybe it wasn't tough enough. They've been doing this to our country for a long time, for many years. And it's about time that somebody stuck up for the people of this country and for the people of other countries. So if anything, maybe that statement wasn't tough enough. And we're backed by 100% by our military. We're backed by everybody. And we're backed by many other leaders. And I noticed that many senators and others today came out very much in favor of what I said. But if anything, that statement may not be tough enough.
What would be tougher than fire and fury?
Well, you'll see. You'll see.
Mr. President, is one of the options being considered a preemptive strike, a first strike?
We don't talk about that. I never do. I'm not like the other administration that would say we're going into Mosul in 4 months. I don't talk about it. We'll see what happens. But I can tell you that what they've been doing and what they've been getting away with is a tragedy, and it can't be allowed.
Mr. President, would you ever consider negotiations under different circumstances?
Sure, we'll always consider negotiations, but they've been negotiating now for 25 years. Look at Clinton. He folded on the negotiations. He was weak and ineffective. You look what happened with Bush. You look what happened with Obama. Obama, he didn't even want to talk about it. But I talk. It's about time. Somebody has to do it.
Mr. President, there was some mixed messages coming out of your administration on North Korea. Secretary Tillerson seemed to advocate for diplomacy. Secretary Mattis seemed to advocate for
There are no mixed messages. There are no mixed messages. I heard, to be honest, General Mattis may have taken it a step beyond what I said. There are no mixed messages, and Rex was just, stating the view. Look, here's the view. I said it yesterday. I don't have to say it again. And I'll tell you this. It may be tougher than I said it, not less. It may very well be tougher than I said it. Okay? How about one more?
Can you offer any assurance to the American people who are understandably anxious about the situation with North Korea? They see images of these missiles coming up in the air, the threat to Guam. They see your statement about fire and fury. Should they be comfortable that you have this under control?
The people of this country should be very comfortable. And I will tell you this. If North Korea does anything in terms of even thinking about attack of anybody that we love or we represent or our allies or us, they can be very, very nervous. I'll tell you what, and they should be very nervous, because things will happen to them like they never thought possible, okay? He's been pushing the world around for a long time, and I have great respect for what China and what Russia did, and those 15, we got a 15-0 vote. I have great respect for China and Russia, what they did on sanctions. I believe that will have an effect. I don't think it will have the kind of effect, even though we were the ones that got it. And Nikki Haley did a great job. We all did a great job. But I have great respect for what they did. I have great respect for the 15-0, but probably it will not be as effective as a lot of people think it can be, unfortunately.
Can China do more?
I think China can do a lot more, yes. China can, and I think China will do a lot more. Look, we have trade with China. We lose hundreds of billions of dollars a year on trade with China. They know how I feel. It's not going to continue like that. But if China helps us, I feel a lot differently toward trade. A lot differently toward trade. So we will do, I think, the people of our country are safe, our allies are safe, and I will tell you this, North Korea better get their act together, or they're going to be in trouble like few nations ever have been in trouble in this world. Okay? Thank you very much. We're going down to the other side, and we're going to take a few more questions. Okay? Thank you.
Let's start again with North Korea.
Okay.
The president has just come out in New Jersey and said that perhaps his comments of the other day, this is news to you?
Did the president just say this?
Yes.
Oh, no, I'm not aware of that yet. What did the
said
president
that
say?
his fire and fury comment from the other day maybe wasn't strong enough. I'm just wondering if you have any comment about that, but I understand if you
Yeah,
don't.
I'm
since
not
you
aware of
just
the
said it.
president's comments. I have not heard those comments myself. Matt, I trust you. You're an excellent reporter. You always get it right. I will say this. Our position and our policy and our strategy hasn't changed one bit.
So, does the secretary, who you speak for, believe that he is part of the national security team that advises the president on national security issues and contributes to making policy?
I'm wondering where you're going to go with this, but yes, absolutely, without a doubt. As you know, the Secretary, the President, Secretary Mattis, along with the National Security Council, General McMaster, they meet frequently, they meet often to have conversations about national security issues.
So then I'm curious about your reaction to some comments that an aide to the President made, Dr. Gorka, to the BBC. And when he was asked about the apparent differences in tone between various officials, he said, "You should listen to the president. The idea that Secretary Tillerson is going to discuss military matters is simply nonsensical. It is the job of Secretary Mattis, Secretary of Defense, to talk about the military options, and he has done so unequivocally. That is his mandate. Secretary Tillerson is the chief diplomat of the United States, and it is his portfolio to handle those issues." Does the Secretary, or does this building agree with comments like that, which would seem to suggest that the Secretary this is not the Secretary's lane, and that he should he should butt out and keep his mouth shut on things that relate to the military matters?
Well, the Secretary, as you know, he has a close relationship with Secretary Mattis. Our Secretary, Secretary Tillerson, talks a lot about our diplomatic strategy and our diplomatic policy. That has not changed. The Secretary has been very robust in that, just having returned, as we talked about yesterday, from the ASEAN conference where he met for 3 days with a lot of foreign officials. As I was coming out here, I heard about Sebastian Gorka's comments. I didn't hear them myself, so I don't want to comment on exactly what he had to say. But I can say that I speak for Secretary Tillerson and this building. Our Secretary has been very clear, as has Secretary Mattis, that our diplomatic and military means are both strong and capable, and in the face of the threats that we face against the DPRK or other nations.
Right. But does the Secretary believe that diplomacy should be combined with military options, and that to produce a successful result? And does he? I take it then he would reject the suggestion that he doesn't have any business talking about.
I would say that Secretary Mattis oversees the U.S. military, and he and Secretary Tillerson have a good, close, cooperative relationship. And one part of our U.S. government is, of course, the State Department, and we do diplomacy here out of this building. Secretary Tillerson has not spoken about U.S. military capabilities. You all hear me very often from this room when you ask me about U.S. military assets or plans. I refer you to DOD.
Right. But the suggestion that was made is that that basically the Secretary Tillerson shouldn't be involved or shouldn't be listened to as it relates to policy towards North Korea. Is that something that you agree with?
I think that everyone has clearly heard what Secretary Tillerson's forceful comments have been and continue to be on the issue of DPRK and on other countries as well.
Should be paid attention to.
I would think so, yes.
All right. So the idea
he's a cabinet secretary. He's a fourth in line to the presidency. He carries a big stick.
And Dr. Gorka is where in that line of succession?
I don't work with with Sebastian Gorka. I have known him from a previous life and a previous career, but I have not spoken to him about the comments that he made.
All right.
And let me just leave it at that. Okay. All right. While we're on DPRK, let's stick to that. I'd like to stick to regions if we can today. So, any questions on DPRK? Okay. Hi, Rich.
And this is in the diplomatic lane, talking about China, South China Sea, freedom of navigation. China says that the recent U.S. Freedom of navigation operation harms Chinese sovereignty. This is an issue and a response that we've seen before. But do issues like freedom of navigation, some of the economic issues, do they make for a more difficult campaign on North Korea with China?
Freedom of navigation operations happen all around the world. They tend to get the most attention when they happen in the South China Sea. They happen off the coast of Canada. They happen in the waters, offshore of our major allies, friends, partners all around the world. That's why we're focusing on it right now. That's why you're asking me that question, because of the issue of DPRK. As you know, Secretary Tillerson coming back from the ASEAN conference where there was a joint statement that was issued about the South China Sea. We talked about that pretty extensively yesterday. As you all know, U.S. forces will operate in the Asia-Pacific region. They do that on a daily basis, including the South China Sea. The operations are conducted in accordance with international law, and the point of that is to demonstrate that the United States will continue to fly, sail, and operate wherever international law allows. It's true in the South China Sea. It's true in other places around the world as well.
And when the U.S. deals with China, negotiates, speaks with China, does it view these issues as compartmentalized or as one big issue?
We have lots of ongoing conversations. As you know, we had the four-way dialogue with China. We've had 2 of the 4 meetings that are set to take place. I believe the next 2 are set to take place later this year. We discuss all kinds of issues. Secretary Mattis was over here not too long ago, having spoken with Secretary Tillerson and our Chinese counterparts about many of these issues. Among the issues, we talk about the Chinese, South China Sea, of course, but we also talk about DPRK and other matters as well.
And so it doesn't hamper the pressure campaign, you don't think?
We have well, look, you know what happened at the United Nations. The United Nations Security Council unanimously passed the new UN Security Council resolution on the DPRK. China was one of those countries that voted along with that. So that means that China has to enforce its sanctions. They have said that they would. We look forward to and expect them to enforce those sanctions as well. Okay? Okay. And welcome back.
Thank you. Congratulations on the UN Security Council sanctions. It has been suggested you could have given them longer to bear fruit before threatening fire and fury. How long do you think it'll take before we see North Korea backing down thanks to these sanctions?
Well, you know, look, I can't speculate as to what North Korea is going to do. We talked yesterday about our pressure campaign and how the pressure campaign is, in our opinion, working. We've had many countries that we are close friends with and countries that we aren't as close with, help participate in that pressure campaign, and that is because the world recognizes the severe threat that the DPRK faces, not just to the United States, but to the entire world.
An element of the pressure campaign is
Yes.
to seek the diplomatic isolation of North Korea. North Korea obviously attended the ASEAN Regional Forum and has been invited to attend next year's Regional Forum by the hosts. Was that a failure in an attempt to isolate them diplomatically, or was there some utility in meeting them again?
My understanding that in terms of invitations like that, the conversations are ongoing. We are not a part of ASEAN, so we do not have the ability to extend or rescind an invitation, so we would leave that up to ASEAN itself. But those nations all joined us in a pretty condemning statement of the activities on the part of the DPRK.
And is it your understanding that the warning that the president issued about fire and fury being visited on North Korea was if they were to test another missile, to form some kind of provocative action, or simply if they resume their normal belligerent rhetoric?
I'm just not going to get into any hypotheticals.
When yesterday Kim Jong-un laid out first he ridiculed the president of the United States, then he laid out the plan
Kim Jong-un is welcome to
Guam.
he could certainly say what he chooses. Okay, I can't affect that in any kind of way. But in terms of the pressure campaign, when we talk about it working, part of that from the UN Security Council resolution that we believe will help remove about $1 billion worth of exports, money that would go into the pockets of the North Korean regime. That money, by the way, does not get used to feed its own people. We know people in that nation, North Koreans, are starving. The money there that goes into North Korea does not go to the people. It goes to the government, and it's very expensive illegal nuclear and ballistic missile weapons programs.
And on that point, one of the points of the sanctions is to curtail imported labor from North Korea
Yes.
to certain countries and so on. Kuwait, a country that is an ally of the United States, Kuwait, said that it will continue to host North Korean workers and laborers and so on. Do you have any comment or reaction?
I do.
to that?
Yeah, what you're talking about is a Associated Press report that came out, I believe it was overnight, that indicated that Kuwait was going to continue hosting North Korean guest workers. That would obviously be a concern to us. There are North Korean guest workers in place around the world. A big part of our pressure campaign, as many of you know, has been saying to those countries through a series of bilateral meetings that Secretary Tillerson here at the State Department has had with many of his counterparts, asking other nations to reduce the number of North Korean guest workers. Those guest workers who are working in construction and in other industries in countries around the world are getting that money. That money is going straight back to North Korea into its weapons program. That money does not go to the North Korean individuals themselves. It does not go to the North Korean civilians and citizens and family members. What you're referring to in terms of Kuwait, we are certainly aware of that report. It was brought to our attention. I would have to refer you to the government of Kuwait for more information on that. However, we understand that the government of Kuwait will be issuing a statement on those reports and their overall DPRK policy imminently. We are in close contact with the government of Kuwait. They recognize the serious nature of this issue and the serious nature of that report that did come out. The government of Kuwait will be taking further measures in response to the dangerous and provocative behavior of the DPRK regime. Within the coming days, we are told, we are again told to expect a statement on that matter. Okay.
When? Because I'm looking at the statement that they sent to us right here, and it's very straightforward. Two questions. Question one, did Kuwait stop issuing new working visas to North Koreans last year? Answer, no. The state of Kuwait did not stop issuing working visas to North Korean laborers. And then secondly, how many remaining North Korean laborers work in Kuwait, and does the country have any plans for expelling them? Answer, the number of North Korean laborers in the state of Kuwait is 6,064, and there are no plans. There are no plans to
If
expel.
they have 6,064 North Koreans, that is why it's an issue that's been brought to our attention. I can't get into the details of any possible private diplomatic conversations, but I am told, and I think if you look at the timestamp on whenever they sent that to you, I'm told as of about 40 minutes ago or so that a announcement would be forthcoming.
Announcement, do you have any reason to believe that the announcement will be the same as what I've just read to you?
I can tell you that it's an issue of big concern, and I can't get into private diplomatic conversations.
Okay.
So I hope that helps answer it and clarify it.
But we'll look for their statement.
We will look for their statement, and we will see what happens on that. You know, obviously, the export of labor, as I have mentioned, enables the development of the illicit nuclear and missile program. The government of Kuwait has been a good friend to the United States. You know, the Emir of Kuwait has been extremely supportive, has been helpful, very helpful, as the moderator and mediator in handling the GCC, the Qatar dispute. We continue to work with that government and work with the Emir in that dispute as well. Okay. Anything else on this issue of Kuwait? On this issue of Kuwait, yes or no? Okay. All right. Anything else on North Korea?
Yes.
Okay. Go right ahead. Hi, Miss.
Yes, about the new UN resolution. It
Yes.
also sought resumptions of the six-party talks. So we are just wondering that is the U.S. really preparing for the talks and making some contacts? And the second question is about the China's proposal of the.
Let me get to your first question first, okay? Will the United States return to talks with North Korea? And the answer to that is, and the Secretary has talked about this a lot, he has said he's not going to negotiate his way back to the negotiating table, okay? He has said that months ago. He's not moved away from that position one bit. There have been headlines that have been inaccurate that have alluded to the opposite of that. We would need to know that North Korea is taking serious and literal steps to denuclearizing in order for the United States to even get to that point. Susan Thornton, our acting assistant secretary for East Asian Affairs, who has been traveling with the secretary en route back to Washington at this moment from that ASEAN trip, she's been very firm at that. She said something along the lines of, look, we are nowhere near close to that point, especially after we've had 2 intercontinental ballistic missile tests within less than a month. They are not showing us, the DPRK is not showing us that they are close to sitting down and talking anytime soon. Okay.
Okay, and also about Ms. Thornton, just before the ASEAN trip, Thornton just make a connection between the China's trade with the U.S. and kind of a DPRK's issue. So now China just endorsed or just agree with the UN sanctions on the DPRK. So does it mean that the trade relations between China and the US could be kind of okay in the near future?
I would have to refer you on that trade matter to our trade representative and other people who actually handle that trade issue. But look, we are pleased with China voting along with the United States and others in that unanimous UN Security Council resolution, and we look forward to China adhering to its commitments on instituting and seeing through those sanctions. Okay, anything, DPRK? Okay.
Two related North Korea questions. Oh, the first one is just to clarify. You said sending the warship to South China Sea is no way. It's not the way the United States sees vent your frustration on not enough progress on North Korea.
Not at all. Look, what it takes to move U.S. military equipment and ships is a lot. Those things are pre-planned, and DOD can really speak to that. But those things have been planned for a long, long time. The United States does these operations, the freedom of navigation operations, all around the world, many times a year. And in fact, I probably have some facts and figures for you on that. But this is nothing new. We've done it before. We'll continue to do that.
Given the timing, as China and ASEAN just reached the frame of code of conduct in South China Sea, isn't this move counterproductive and actually inflame the tension in South China Sea? And as a matter of fact, the United States just endorsed the frame of code of conduct in South China Sea.
Yes, we did, and we are in compliance and adherence with that. This is a somewhat of a complex legal matter, so I want to read from you some of this so that there's no confusion on the part of folks across the world. We have a comprehensive freedom of navigation operations program under which the U.S. forces challenge excessive maritime claims around the globe to demonstrate our commitment to uphold the rights, freedoms, and uses of the sea and airspace guaranteed to all nations under international law. All nations, that is guaranteed to the United States and to other nations as well. That's why I mentioned we do these freedom of navigation operations off the coast of Canada, for example, along with many other places. FONOPs, as we refer to it, are not about any one country. They're not about making a political statement. In 2016, and here's the number I referred to, we conducted these challenging excessive maritime claims in 22 different coastal states, including claims of allies and partners as well. So I hope that answers your question. Okay. Somebody had something over here about China.
Is China doing enough on North Korea? Are you satisfied with what they're doing?
You know, the Secretary has spoken to this issue a lot. Is China doing enough? And one of the things that he's consistently said is that we see some movement on the part of China, but that movement and that engagement can be uneven at times. But look, he had conversations with many partners on his recent trip to ASEAN. We think we've made some additional progress in there. They certainly recognize what instability in that region means for their nation. They also jumped on board with that United Nations Security Council resolution, so we're pleased with that. But we look forward and hope that they will do more.
You have been saying the pressure is working, but the facts...
That the what?
You have been saying that the pressure on North Korea is working, but the facts speak otherwise. They have done 2 ICBM tests in less than a month. They have 32 fire missiles in Guam. So what do you say about that?
You know,
it doesn't seem that pressure is working on them.
Look, this pressure campaign is going to take a while. We've always recognized that. It took us many, many years to get to this concerning point where the United States and the world are right now with the DPRK. We can't expect that this is going to change overnight. This pressure campaign is going to take some time. Part of that pressure campaign is removing the money that North Korea gets for its weapons programs. We believe that through time and through talking to other countries about what those countries can do to reduce the number of guest workers, to reduce the size of embassies and missions in Pyongyang and in other places around the DPRK, that will help remove some of the funding for that.
But you still believe that you have enough, there is the luxury of some, I don't want to say luxury, but you have time? Because I think what this week has shown us in terms of the miniaturization report, that there may not be enough time to let these things.
I want to point out that report that you just mentioned. A lot of people have asked about that. That would be an intelligence matter that I can't confirm, and I will not have nothing to say from here about that.
Right, but I'm not asking about the report. I'm
Okay.
just saying that.
Well, you referenced it, so I just wanted to make that clear.
But developments over the course of the last couple of weeks have made it clear, I think, to everyone that time is not necessarily on your side here, that that the North Koreans are progressing much more quickly than had been anticipated, expected, or theorized.
But
And
we're
now
without
they're-
a doubt concerned about that.
Right, but so my question to you is, are you confident that there is time to allow these sanctions and the pressure campaign to work, that you have the time for that to work before they do something rash?
I think the best thing that I can say about that is referencing something that the Secretary said yesterday, and that is that Americans can sleep safely at night.
That's the thing that Dr. Gorka said, that was pure nonsense and shouldn't be listened to.
I would refer you back to Mr. Gorka on that one.
U.S. military presence in Asia.
We are going to look at what's happening in Asia. We're looking at it right now. We're constantly looking at it. I don't like to signal what I'm going to be doing, but we are certainly looking at it. And obviously, we're spending a lot of time looking at, in particular, North Korea. And we are preparing for many different alternative events at North Korea. If he has disrespected our country greatly, he has said things that are horrific. And with me, he's not getting away with it. He got away with it for a long time between him and his family. He's not getting away with it. It's a whole new ballgame. And he's not going to be saying those things, and he's certainly not going to be doing those things. I read about we're in Guam by August 15th. Let's see what he does with Guam. He does something in Guam, it will be an event the likes of which nobody's seen before, what will happen in North Korea.
And when you say that, what do you mean?
You'll see. You'll see. And he'll see.
Is that a
He
dare?
will see. It's not a dare. It's a statement. Has nothing to do with dare. That's a statement. He's not going to go around threatening Guam, and he's not going to threaten the United States, and he's not going to threaten Japan, and he's not going to threaten South Korea. No, that's not a dare, as you say. That is a statement of fact.
Mr. President, can you talk about the nuclear posture and what your priorities are there?
Yeah, nuclear to me, number one, I would like to de-nuke the world. I know that President Obama said global warming is the biggest threat. I totally disagree. I say that it's a simple one. Nuclear is our greatest threat worldwide. Not even a question, not even close. So I'd like to de-nuke the world. I would like Russia and the United States and China and Pakistan and many other countries that have nuclear weapons, get rid of them. But until such time as they do, we will be the most powerful nuclear nation on earth by far. The first order I gave to my generals, as you know, Mike, my first order was I want our nuclear arsenal to be the biggest and the finest in the world. And we spent a lot of money, a lot of time, and a lot of effort. And it's in tip-top shape and getting better and getting stronger. And until such time as this scourge disappears, we will be so much better and so much stronger than anybody else. And nobody, including North Korea, is going to be threatening us with anything.
Sir, what specifically have you changed in the nuclear arsenal? And the reason I ask is that a lot of experts yesterday, in response to your tweet, said that modernizing the arsenal takes many years. It can't be done in 6 months. It's a long process that's only just begun.
We've done a lot of modernization, but we've done a lot of renovation. And we have it now in very, very good shape. And it will be in much better shape over the next 6 months to a year.
Mr. President,
It's a very important thing. Actually, it was the first. Military is very important to me. As you know, I did extremely well with the military vote, Mike and I. But my first order was we have to do the military, but before we do the military per se, we're going to do the nuclear. And we are in very strong shape. We are going to be increasing our budget by many billions of dollars because of North Korea and other reasons having to do with the anti-missile. So we are going to be increasing our budget by many billions of dollars. We'll probably be able to report that over the next week. As you know, we reduced it by 5%, but I've decided I don't want that. We're going to be increasing the anti-missiles by a substantial amount of billions of dollars.